Welcome, community, to the ABC Realty podcast show, where we are interested in talking about all things real estate and equity. And today we have a special guest with us. We have Bill Gray here from the Minnesota Homeownership Center, and we're going to talk about a lot of things in that intersection of real estate and equity, or housing and equity, if you will. So let me introduce my wonderful guest here, Bill Gray from the Minnesota Homeownership Center.
Thanks, Sian. Good to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you, Bill. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome to the studio. Yeah. I wanted to have you here today, Bill, because I think not enough people really know about the Minnesota Homeownership Center. And not enough people really understand the significance that the Homeownership Center plays in all things real estate or home, right, if you will.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit, Bill, about, what is the Minnesota Homeownership Center?
Sure. So the Minnesota Homeownership Center is a nonprofit. It's been around since 1993, and it was formed to kind of standardize some of the education and other requirements that lenders had around certain types of loans. And it has really evolved into an organization promoting successful and sustainable home ownership for all Minnesotans. And specifically, we work in the area where disparities are. Minnesota is always near the bottom as far as the gap between home ownership for white non-Hispanic households and households of color. And there's all sorts of reasons for that, but one of the biggest things that we do is conduct our outreach and for our work aimed at the people who have faced the most barriers to home ownership in the past. So lower income households and of course households of color.
Interesting. So you mentioned that you were flagshipped as an entity to streamline education. A lot of people don't understand or know that there is an educational piece, right, to preparing for homeownership. Can you tell us what that educational piece looks like?
Sure, and I can also tell you I sure didn't know about it when I bought my first house. What we have is a class that's called Homestretch. It is right now it's an 8-hour class, usually over 2 days, usually in person, except with COVID now it's sometimes by Zoom, whatever. And this is a class that covers everything from how to pick a realtor, what does an inspector do, what do the taxes look like, how do you apply for a mortgage, how does a credit score fit in, and it's all these things that are designed to prepare you to go into the home buying process with your eyes wide open about how it works. For years and years, more people were taking that class as a requirement to close their loan when they're 2/3 of the way through the process already, as opposed to taking it voluntarily because they want to learn how to do the process. And so a lot of our work has been trying to get out in the community and get rid of some of those myths that keep people from thinking about home ownership and get people to think about this education class in advance. And so happily 3 years ago, we finally hit the majority are now taking it voluntarily rather than required. So
did the lenders, did they create this body of education then within their industry?
It is a standardized course that is based on curriculum requirements through the Housing and Urban Development, I believe. What I want to say for sure is it's not a class invented by the lenders. It is a class that you have to make sure you cover certain things,
Right.
and it's HUD approved,
Mm-hmm.
and there's things that it has to touch
Right.
as part of that.
Right.
And so yeah, that's what it is. And so we
Mm-hmm.
train the trainers. These trainers are work with community-based organizations
Mm-hmm.
across the state, everybody from Twin Cities Habitat to
Right.
One Roof Community Housing in Duluth, all
Mm-hmm.
over the state, so that when you're learning about this, you're learning about it from somebody who lives in your community,
Mm-hmm.
who looks like you,
Yeah.
who has the same day-to-day struggles as you,
Mm-hmm.
and who you can trust.
Right.
And so yeah, that's where that comes from. We're also a HUD intermediary at this point, which just
Mm-hmm.
means more of the same. Very much um, uh, standardized education, always looking at it to figure
Mm-hmm.
out how can we make it more human-centered,
Right.
more relevant to
Mm-hmm.
those who we're trying to reach out to.
Awesome. I have taught that class, the real estate portion,
Mm-hmm.
and that's I think is really dynamic about the class is many times, especially in-person class, they will bring the professionals in to teach the portion
Yes.
related to their industry.
I think that's one of the
Yeah.
best things about it.
Absolutely. So you don't get bored, right?
Right.
8 hours with the same teacher.
Right. Right.
Same trainer.
Exactly.
Right? All day. I think it's a wonderful class. I mean, for anybody who is thinking about home ownership,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of moving parts to get prepared to buy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not as simple as mom and dad giving you 20% down and saying, "All right, go get them."
Right. Wouldn't that
Go
be
get them.
great?
That would be lovely, right? But it's not that simple.
Right.
It's just not that simple. So my buyers who I have sent to that class, they come out of that class empowered.
Mm-hmm.
They come out of that class empowered with knowledge on, okay, now I know what this process looks like, and they never ever feel like they've been sideswiped
Right.
because they have the knowledge from, getting ready to get a mortgage, to selecting your team, right? And I tell my clients, this is the most important team you're going to assemble,
Right.
because there's only one other thing more expensive in life that you're going to engage in, and that's having children.
Right.
Right. So if this is a big ticket item
Right.
that you're preparing for, so you need to assemble, as I put it, an A team.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I totally agree.
Mhm.
The point of this class also is to show you everything that's involved. You may decide it's not for you,
Yeah,
and that's fine as well.
absolutely.
We should talk about the advisors too, because
Mhm.
that's a really big other piece of the
Okay.
buying side.
Sure.
So you take this class,
Mhm.
and then it's 8 hours of information. You have a binder when you're done,
Right.
and
And a certificate.
yeah, and a certificate.
Mhm.
And it's not a thing where they're like, okay, go forth and do it.
Yeah.
The cool part about what we do
Mhm.
is we have home ownership advisors who are many times these same people that teach the class,
Right.
who are experts in building your
Mhm.
own personal roadmap to successful home ownership. So someone may come in with a good credit score, get some resources.
Mhm.
They want to learn about the process. They take the class. They're pretty much ready to go, and
Mhm.
that's great. Lots of other people come in with the dream of home ownership,
Mhm.
no idea how to prepare for it, and they take the class, and they may need help
Sure.
improving their credit
Yep.
score, and they
Mhm.
may even need help trying to figure out how to make the math work in the first place
Right.
to be able to buy a home. And so these advisors sit down with you, pull your credit scores, and figure out your process to home ownership. And it's not just a here's a map.
Right.
It's an ongoing meet whenever you want with questions.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going? Kind of thing. Sometimes the process can take 5 years.
Sure.
I mean, that's on the really
Right.
far side of it, probably. But
Right.
so
and that is more specific to getting them mortgage ready. Would you
yes,
say?
getting the
Yeah.
mortgage ready.
Yeah.
Right.
And getting mortgage ready means that if you have some bumps and bruises
Right.
on your credit report, then we're gonna go in and we're gonna come in with the salve and the needle and thread,
Right.
and we're gonna make it better.
Right.
Right.
And it's important to remember too, you may qualify with
Right.
what you have.
Yeah.
But with just a little bit of work to
Mm-hmm.
improve that credit score, you may get a way better interest rate that'll save you a lot of money over the long term. So it's not just about qualifying; it's about how do we get you into the best position
Exactly.
to go forward.
Exactly. Yeah, like a half a point
Yes.
improvement on your interest rate for
Right.
a mortgage could mean that you now can buy 50,000 more
Mm-hmm.
in a home. In a home. So you could be approved as is today for maybe 180.
Right.
But if you did just a little bit of work,
Right.
and just massage that score a little bit, we could get you to 250.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And this summer, the median home sales number hit 310.
Yep.
For the first time here in the Twin Cities. So if $310,000 is the median sales price here in the Twin Cities,
Right.
then you are going to be much better leveraged if you can qualify up to 250,000 versus 180 or 150.
Right. And I always think, people ask us, there's no affordable homes available right now. And, in many ways that's true. And there's all sorts of things happening to try to, rectify that situation. That's a whole nother podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with interest rates as low as they are, and I'm not, the financial expert on this, but there's an interplay between price and interest rate where paying more than you would have to today with this interest rate down here is actually cheaper than, the reverse.
Exactly.
And there's no guarantee that, prices are going to go down. In fact, we talk about the Great Recession when the housing market crashed. Everybody that's talking about this time around is saying that, this is not built on bad loans. This is not, the demand outstrips supply already. And so there's, it's not going to be like it was last time because,
there won't be a recovery.
Right.
Because we're really not in a broken market.
We're not.
We're in a market where, as you said, the demand for housing has far outstripped the supply of available housing.
So to wait for prices to go down, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen.
Yeah, no. At best, prices will flatten out. They'll stop going in this direction, and we're already seeing a little of that now, where in a lot of markets prices are kind of starting to flatten out. I do not see that the prices are going to go in this direction, because there isn't an economic indicator that will happen. Yeah. So, and I like what you said, where you could have $310,000 price point at an interest rate of less than 3%, and your monthly payment could be less than a $150,000 price point or $180,000 price point at 8% interest.
It's amazing, the magic.
This is more expensive than this.
Right. The magic of those exponential numbers and how they work. And you know what? The advisors know all this stuff way better than I do.
Me and you
they
both.
can tell you exactly how what I'm trying to explain works. So
Exactly. Yeah. So really, price point
yeah,
isn't really the end all be all.
right,
The magic happens
yeah,
in the interest rates
right,
and the other costs to financing
right.
to getting a mortgage. And which is why, and I'm sure community, you can see now how relevant the work that the Minnesota Homeownership Center does is to us real estate professionals. We rely heavily on their data. The next thing, Bill, that I want to talk to you about, I'm gonna switch gears here.
Okay.
So I want to make sure everyone understands that the organization is the Minnesota Homeownership Center, and they have because they do work in that space of equity and disparities. They have a program within the Homeownership Center, and it is called the Homeownership Opportunity Alliance. And I wanna talk to you, Bill, more about the Homeowner Opportunity Alliance.
Sure, sure. So I would call the Homeownership Opportunity Alliance a tool in our toolbox.
Tool in the toolbox. Love
It is an outreach initiative
Mhm.
that we launched a few years back in conjunction with Minnesota Housing to attract realtors and lenders and government officials in this space and nonprofits in this space to all so it's kind of twofold. First of all, to bring them all together to brainstorm ideas on how to reduce the gap that we talked about
Right.
earlier.
The gap between
Yeah.
homeowners of color and white homeowners.
Yeah,
Right.
the
And
ownership
non-Hispanic.
gap.
Yes, the ownership gap.
And again, Minnesota's is one of the worst in the country. So there's that work. There's the brainstorming work, and I can tell you a couple of the products that have come out of that. Products being, thought leadership
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
And then the other half of it is an outreach tool. So these realtors and lenders and folks, what we did when we launched things in 2018 is we focused our outreach efforts for the year on the African American community, specifically in St. Paul and Minneapolis, and probably more specifically North Minneapolis, East Side St. Paul. And so we went around and had pop-up events. We had radio shows on KMOJ. We had an event with Spokesman Recorder Newspaper. We had one with Insight News. All of this was designed to have the conversation in the community from people that are trusted in the community,
from the community,
to talk about the myths that keep people from home ownership. So those 4 myths are: I got a bad credit score, I'll never be able to buy. Not true. Our home ownership advisors can help you with that.
Right.
I don't make enough money. That is a very tricky and misleading concept because depending on, I mean, the bottom line is this: if you can afford rent, a lot of times you can afford a mortgage payment. It's just a matter of getting over the hurdles. First of all, the hurdle of finding a place, but then the hurdles of qualifying for that mortgage and all that kind of
and
stuff.
managing your money, right?
Money.
Because you could earn $25,000 a year and be a really good money manager and have everything you need. You could earn $125,000 a year and be a horrible money manager and always be broke.
Right. And that's a good point, because we got into financial literacy a few years back too, because that's part of this conversation.
Yeah. So
the myths, the credit score, the how much do I make, the 20% down payment. Here's another one. 20% down on a median $310,000.
Yeah.
That's $62,000.
Right.
I don't have 6,200.
Neither do I. Amen to that.
So 20% is not true. I suppose it's, if it's you go totally traditional and you have lots of money, 20% is the way to go.
Right.
But
Right.
there are programs, some of which require the class we talked about, that can get you into a house with 3.5% down.
Yep.
And the thing is this. So a lot of times some of that is down payment assistance. People sometimes think of down payment assistance as free money. It can be, could be a grant, but
Right.
more often than not, it is some kind of second mortgage or amount of money that's put onto the loan that you pay off at the end. And what that usually means is it's paid off when you sell the house. And so, but what it does is it gets you over the hurdle of achieving the home ownership.
Right.
So, and we can talk about down payment later because that's one of the thought leadership
Right.
things that the HOA works on. The fourth myth is, do I have to do it by myself? And we talked about the homeownership advisors.
Right.
You don't.
Yeah.
By the way, those services are free. They're paid for by HUD and by the other people that fund the center, the other organizations that fund the center. And again, the point is to try to make homeownership more equitable access wise than it has been in the past.
Right. Did you hear that, community? Their services are free. Myth number one, my credit score is bad. There's nothing more changeable and malleable than a credit score. That can always be changed. Myth number two was, I don't make enough money. And again, it's not the money, it's how you manage the money that you have. And myth number three, I don't have 20% down, is simply a myth. And myth number four was,
You don't have to do it by
you
yourself.
don't have to do it by yourself. And that support community is free. You can meet with a homeownership advisor and they can help you map out a path to homeownership that is unique to you and to your situation, and that does not cost you a thing. Which brings me, Bill, to my next point that I want to touch on, and thank you for sharing that with me, because according to the data, and one of the things that the Home Ownership Center does is they collect data, right, on the state of Minnesota. So not just the Twin Cities here, but the entire state of Minnesota. And one data point you have, I find fascinating. And this is the data point that there are currently 61,000 Minnesotans of color that are income eligible for a mortgage, but they're renting. Why is that? Fascinating question. Fascinating question. So my first part of that question is, how do you get that data? Where does that data come from? Right.
Right.
How do you do?
That's a great question, and I have to confess that this, our data collection is in conjunction with Minnesota Housing.
Okay.
So Minnesota Housing is very integral in this particular data point.
Gotcha.
They're the ones with the access to that specific information.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're a state level organization. Okay.
Right. So they can see on the back end of transactions and stuff that we can't see. So anyways, so the 61,000, what they did with that is they took the general mortgage qualifiers, so income, credit score, these kinds of things, and applied it to the renting population in Minnesota. And they were able to find 61,000 households of color in the state that on paper would appear to be able to afford a mortgage if they wanted to. Why are they renting? Our belief and our experience in the community shows it's, holds it up, is that a lot of times myths keep people from considering it in the first place, or their family has never done that, and it's never occurred to them that this might be something that they should look into. On the flip side, maybe they have no interest at all in owning.
Right.
Maybe they're temporary here.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
all sorts of good reasons
Oh,
why you shouldn't
absolutely.
buy.
Yeah.
But we see that as an opportunity to focus our work to reduce that gap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
What if all 61,000? By the way, are you one of the 61,000?
hmm
But
hmm
what if all 61,000 became homeowners? What would that do to the gap?
so I can't answer that specifically, but I
Okay.
have a different question and answer
Mm-hmm.
that'll demonstrate that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those thought leadership things that the alliance does. And
Okay.
so we did a payment, and we did an academic research study on the impact of down payment assistance. And again, remember, this isn't usually free money.
Right.
It's just a tool to help you qualify that you pay back
Right.
as you go.
Because many people, they can afford a monthly mortgage payment because it's similar. If it's similar to rent, what they're paying in rent now, but they just don't have a lump sum
Right.
to get over the down payment
Right.
or the closing costs. Right.
So right now, down payment assistance programs are all over the map. 5,000, 50,000, all over the map. This one's only available on this side of the street in Minneapolis. This one's only available in this neighborhood in Duluth. And so our study was tried to find the impact if you streamlined not only the processes but the amounts. And the sweet spot that they found was if you could offer 10,500 in down payment assistance, you would be able to move. Let me think about this. You would be able to move 100,000 households into ownership.
Wow.
I should have brought my press release on
Wow.
that, but I believe
Okay.
that's correct.
That's amazing.
But
That's powerful.
The key to answering the question you have is if you were to move, if you were to, I really want to get that press release.
Sure.
Because it's so powerful. And what we figured out is at the end of the day, if you were able to implement this, you could decrease that ownership gap by 11 percentage points.
Wow.
And I think the gap is 38% right now.
Sure.
And so that would be huge. That would be huge.
So that would bring it down to 27%.
Yeah. So we'll figure out a way to share that information. But your question is spot on. This is the kind of work that we do. What can we focus on that will deliver the biggest bang for the buck in reducing that gap? And right now for us, it's trying to standardize down payment assistance programs in this state.
So is it realistic to believe that is achievable?
We think so because cities, counties, other entities are already trying to offer this, and they're trying to do it more and more. And again, remember, it's not free money.
Right.
It's this sustainable pot that, as it's paid back, it can do more.
Exactly.
What do they call that?
So I get $10,500 down payment assistance. The house that I buy is 300,000. So I have my mortgage of let's say I got a 3% down loan, right? And my mortgage is 97% of the 300,000. That 3% down payment, I got help with that 10.5. Right. So as I pay those payments back, that gets paid. If I sell, it gets paid in full, right? Goes back to the pot.
Right.
Okay, so the money is regenerated.
It recycles.
Yeah. Recycles. Oh, that is. Why wouldn't a city or a county, right?
And the thing
be
is
interested in something like that?
They're coming up with the money already, and more and more. as this issue becomes more and more well known, and you know, frankly, it's in everybody's best interest to try to
Right.
make this work for everyone.
Absolutely.
And so to be able to publish some best practices
Mm-hmm.
and help people see that, you know, it'll make it work much more effectively. So
Absolutely.
we'll find for your listeners the info on the down payment
Okay.
stuff.
Absolutely. That is a good one. So again, I want to ask, are you one of the 61?
Right.
Are you one of the 61,000 who is income eligible but paying someone else's mortgage and not your own?
Right. It's a very good way to look
Right.
at it. Right.
Right? Every rent payment you make is a payment toward that property owner's mortgage. So they don't have to pay it. Definitely. So tell us about so you have you mine this data
Right.
all over the state of Minnesota, and you work in partnership
Yep.
with a lot of organizations on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
My next question then is I'm gonna switch gears again. So the moratoriums due to the pandemic, right? Loss of income
forbearance, yep.
and jobs, right? The moratoriums are expiring
Yep.
for mortgage payments, and the moratoriums are expiring for rent reimbursements or rent payments,
Yep.
right? And you know, what are you seeing? What is the home ownership center seeing by way of the data of what we could be looking at?
What I can tell you right now, because it's probably too early for data, you know, there's snapshots of mortgages that are not current, that are just that, they're snapshots, and with forbearance available and that kind of thing, the snapshots are misleading.
Oh,
And so our work right now is less about trying to figure out where we are and more about trying to help you know, avoid another foreclosure crisis. Because here's the deal: even though you know, it probably wouldn't be a foreclosure crisis, because you can always sell. This market is hot.
Right.
But then you lose your investment, you lose all your hard work, and you're back to square one. And so part of our work to promote sustainable homeownership is to help you keep it if you run into trouble. And so many people, that this economic recovery is completely uneven. So many people are in a difficult situation through no fault of their own. And we have homeownership advisors. On the other side of that equation, we have foreclosure prevention advisors. And so right now, not surprisingly, that's the biggest part of our outreach, because, as you say, all of these things are ending. All of this stuff is about to get real.
Right.
If you are still in a difficult situation and don't know exactly how to go about, you know, getting yourself stable,
exactly,
we can help. These guys, these gals, these everybody can talk directly with your lender.
Okay.
Can figure out what your options are. Most of the time with forbearance, they take the amount that you didn't pay and they'll stick it on the back.
Stick it
of
on the
loan.
back end, right? So if you're 10 years into a 30-year mortgage, and you find yourself 15 grand behind total, right? They could take that 15, if you can demonstrate that you can still afford those monthly payments.
Moving forward from this point.
Futureward, then they'll take that 15 grand, they'll tack it on to the end of your mortgage, because you've paid 10 years of that thing. So you got 20 years left, so they'll just tack it on to the back end. We call that restructuring the debt, right? And they could even you know, restructure the interest rate, right? And make it so the payments are palatable, right? They work for your budget,
right? What you want to make sure that you understand is what your options are. With the vast majority of mortgages, they're through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, which just means they're federally backed. There's rules that determine how forbearance can end, and most of the time it's what we just talked about. There's other options, but that's the fallback option in case the other options don't work. There are some mortgages out there that might be able to require a balloon payment at some point. You want to make sure you understand that, you know, I would say if you're in that situation, make sure you talk to a foreclosure prevention advisor, because that's a tricky thing no matter what. And so the bottom line of what I'm trying to say here is, if you have any questions at all,
Yes.
talk to a foreclosure advisor.
Yeah.
It's free. Again, it's free. And our mission is to help you keep a hold of your hard-earned
assets.
accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that is the website community is hocmn.org.
Yep. We've got a section for home buyers where you can find an advisor or look at the classes. We've got a section for homeowners where you can see the foreclosure advisors and find one. And yeah, there's other stuff on there too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what else can you tell us about your work, Bill, and the entity that you represent?
I just want to reiterate that, home ownership is possible. And we are here to help you figure out how to accomplish it for yourself. If you're interested, we push home ownership to the extent that we push home ownership. We push it because it is the number one way that households in this country build wealth. So,
and you have some pieces that we could put on the screen.
I have some stats on who we work with, basically. So it'll show you kind of how we do our outreach, where we direct our outreach. So
right now we're looking at reaching diverse communities to advance homeownership. Tell us about this one.
So this is a stat. We do these stats every year, and they are pretty consistent. So in 2020, which surprisingly was a pretty standard year for our home buyer services. People were more interested even
in 2020
than usual, probably because they were stuck at home so much and decided that they wanted to
working
look into
from
home
home.
ownership. But 2/3 of the folks we worked with last year were specifically African American. Yeah, there we go, African American.
Wow.
About 9% Hispanic. You can see it there. And what this shows is, these are the households that just need a little bit more assistance. The lower income households, the households of color, they're the households that have been left out over the years, and we all know about that. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to reduce that gap. The gap took a long time to create. And it'll probably take a long time to uncreate.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have another slide, Bill. So this is, you mentioned you have to be specific, and you got to remind people it's not just households of color.
Right.
It is households of limited means.
Households of limited means. So the 43,260, that's the median participant household income, and the median is that point in the middle of the two numbers. It might not be the average, but it's the point in the middle of those two numbers. So when we talk about our home stretch classroom education, you can see 81% of participants were at or below 80% of the area median income, and that's just a federal number based on where you live and all sorts of other factors.
And number of household size. So this is that home buyer education class that we were talking about earlier,
education,
where you go in and you learn about the entire process
Yep.
of getting
Right.
home buyer ready.
The
Yep.
second column is for the one-on-one advising.
Mm-hmm.
Again, 76% at or below 80% area median income.
Mm-hmm.
And then the financial wellness, that's really, when you have to kind of start at square one,
Right.
85% at or below 80% area median income.
So that financial wellness works well for somebody who struggles with managing their money.
Right. Or doesn't
Yeah.
know how to make this work on such a
Right.
limited budget.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Wow. And this is all free.
Yep.
This is
I
all
will
free.
say that the class, there's a fee with the classes, sometimes $25, $30 or something.
And you have an online version of that class.
And that's called Framework. Yep. And I think there's a fee with that as well.
I think the Framework is $75.
Framework is $75. The
Yeah.
in-person is a lower price. It really depends on your learning style.
Right.
I just think a lot of people like the in-person interaction and seeing people like you come in and talk about what a realtor does and how they do it, and having a inspector come in
Absolutely.
and talk about the horrors they've seen and why an inspection is important. And,
right.
So.
Yeah, inspections can be tricky.
Right.
And a lender to come in,
yeah.
because not every lender in the marketplace community, not every lender has a specialty for first-time home buyers.
Right.
So if I'm a lender and you walk into my office and you say, I want to buy a home, I'm not going to tell you, hey, I am not the expert on,
Yep.
first-time home buyers. I'm going to say, well, I got a product for you.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's funny because the lenders that participate with us on the HOA are so passionate about this. There's one in particular that will talk about, FHA loan is the I don't know what the default for first-time home buyers.
Right. They'll just automatically place them into an FHA when they could have gone conventional.
Well, and he goes out of his way to say, look, FHA is great if you need it, but if you don't need it, or if you can move that score up a little bit, you can qualify for a way better deal.
Right.
And he's not afraid to say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because his interest is trying to help people do the best they can in that situation. And sometimes, you can do better than FHA.
Absolutely. So. And not every lender is going to tell you that.
Right.
Not every lender even works with down payment assistance or closing cost assistance. There are lenders out there, that's just not their market.
Yeah.
But they're not going to turn business away.
Right. And here's another thing. If all these terms that Sienna and I are throwing around are confusing, talk to one of our advisors, because they know this stuff and they will lay it out for you.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a really committed bunch of folks that work with us.
Absolutely. And I could say the same about realtors. Not every realtor is skilled to work with the first-time home buyer. I had a recent scenario, very income limited buyer, but he had a lot of cash. Well, the lender told him, oh yeah, I can't help you. Your DTI, your debt to income ratio is too low. And I'm like, Tom, does he know that you're putting 20% down? And he's like, well, it didn't come up in conversation. Sure enough, Tom went back. I said, you got to let him know that you have 20% down. That changed the whole narrative.
Right.
Tom's closing end of October.
Right.
Got him a nice, sweet little townhome. So the important takeaway, I think, from me is if you're considering buying, you need to interview for an A team. You got to put together an A team, and your A team has to include a lender, a good lender that knows and understands down payment assistance programs. And they won't tell you that, so you have to ask pointed questions, right? A realtor that knows and understands and is skilled working with first-time home buyers, and a realtor is not going to turn down business. Of course, they're going to say they can help you, but you need them to be skilled, right, in working with the first-time home buyer, because sometimes it just takes asking the right question to reveal the opportunity. You need to work with financial coaches and advisors. The Homeownership Center Minnesota provides that for free, available to anyone. So I think, it's slam dunk, man.
Yeah.
So your A team includes education, it includes representation, it includes, financial literacy,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's a good A team.
And it includes being comfortable
Yes.
with the people you're working with.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. So before we go today, Bill, give the community a 30-second on the HO, the Homeownership Center, and the Homeownership Opportunity Alliance.
Right. So, and like I said, the Opportunity Alliance is just one of the ways we do our outreach. I'll say this: if you're interested in looking into home ownership and whether or not it might be something that's right for you, go to our website, hocmn.org, and look at the home buyer section and find yourself an advisor. And they can sit down and with you for free and tell you where you are on the spectrum of, being able to pull the trigger, not pull the trigger, might take a little bit of work, you're pretty much ready, all that kind of stuff. They can help you out with that. And I'll also say, if you are a homeowner and you are experiencing difficulty with your mortgage, reach out to us as well. The homeowner section, find a foreclosure advisor. These guys, and I keep saying guys, these folks, these people, help you avoid foreclosure. They're not going to help you go through it. I mean, sometimes that happens because there's no other options, but they're going to do everything they can to help you avoid foreclosure. And the other thing about that is, the sooner you reach out, the more options that are still available to you, because this is a very legal process, and as time goes by, certain options go away. So earlier rather than later, if you're having difficulty.
Yeah, I can't stress that enough, guys. Don't wait. Don't bury yourself in fear or shame, because there is nothing to fear, and there's no reason to be ashamed. If you are struggling with your mortgage, there are people that can help, and the Homeownership Center is here for that purpose. So please reach out.
Yep.
Please reach out.
These guys are a lot smarter than me.
Me too.
They know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Wow. I want to thank you, for joining us
you bet.
today, Bill. Yeah, this is fun. And it's been fun working with you guys over the years as well. And everybody should know about the Homeownership Center. Everybody should understand the narrative around the homeownership gap here in Minnesota and what it means for our state. So thank you, community, for joining us today in this conversation. Stay tuned for our next conversation. It will be informative and moving as well. We'll see you next time.
There we go.